people walking amongst us that have the ability to defy the rules and to live a life that is so ballsy and wrong. And the truth of it is, most of us would never, ever, ever be able to do it because we fear the law and the man too much. It's the
Bob and Sheri Oddcast. The Bob and Sheri Oddcast. Come on in, you'll have a blast with the Bob and Sheri
Oddcast. So there's this dude that I'm temporarily fascinated with. He lives in Long Island. He lives in Long Island. He has not paid his mortgage for 20 years, and he still lives in his house.
How do these guys do that? How's he do that?
I'm going to tell you how. He's got such balls. This guy has such balls. You couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. Max couldn't do it. Most people couldn't do it. And here's why. This guy not only has giant balls, but he has the ability to let aggravation and stress roll off of him like water off of a duck. And you and I could never do what this man does. He's 52 now. So he's been doing this since he was 32 years old. And he has not made a single payment on his mortgage since 1998. So how does he stay in the house? Every time they come to evict him, he files lawsuits and he declares bankruptcy. The home was foreclosed on years ago, and it's now owned by a company called Diamond Ridge Partners. And of course, they've hauled my man back into court in another attempt to finally boot him from the property. So he goes into court, and the judge has agreed to delay the case after his name is Hanspall. His last name is Hanspall. After Hanspall's attorney said, "I need more time, Your Honor. My co-counsel was fired yesterday." There have been 40 different lawyers that have appeared the night before a hearing and asked for more time, according to the attorney for Diamond Ridge Partners. And the attorney for Diamond Ridge, they're trying to evict him, said, "This is typical of the defendant. He just recycles lawyers to buy himself more time. And it shouldn't happen. Your Honor, it should not happen. But the law is the law." And so the judge was forced to delay the trial. So when his attorney was asked, why has Mr. Hanspall not paid his mortgage?
His name is perfect, by the way. His name is perfect.
He said, well, that's because Governor Cuomo declared an eviction moratorium in March 2020 and said that the governor made paying rent a moral obligation. But the guy hasn't paid rent in 20 years, so you can't blame COVID-19 for all of it. And the other lawyers arguing that you can't use COVID-19 protections because he's not paid his mortgage for 20 years. Bottom line, this guy has been going to sleep every night in a home that he pays not a dime for, and they can't seem to get him evicted and get him out of it. There's no way, Bob, that you could do that or that I could do that. No way.
No, there's not. I mean, the stress alone would keep me up all night long. To say nothing of, there is something to be said for doing the right thing. I mean, okay, he's getting away with it. He's playing some sort of a long game, but he's an asshole. I mean, that's what it comes down to.
He's definitely an asshole. But if he were sitting here right now, here's what he would say to you. Well, who's the asshole? I'm living in my house and they can't get me out and I'm not paying for it.
You're still the asshole.
You don't see me grinding my teeth at night over a mortgage payment. Look at you. You're living in your house and you're paying for it every month. So who's really the asshole here? And you know that that's how that guy thinks.
It is. And it's also, there's a sickness there. There's mental illness there. Normal people don't do things like this. I know there are guys, he's a grifter. He's a scammer. These people that get away without paying taxes or not paying their rent, they make me sick. Majority of us get our ass out of bed every day, go in there, we get hit with whatever the percentage rate is for taxes. And these people spend their lives just scamming the system and making the world a little shittier place. Pardon my language.
I'm fascinated by this guy because I have family members that are able to do this. I'm not one of them. I'm like such a rule follower.
How so? How so do you have family members who are able to do this?
My father stopped paying taxes when I was about 9
Mm-hmm.
and never paid them again
Mm-hmm.
till the day he died.
How do you get away with that?
He just did not pay his taxes. He went to prison, but not for that. He went to prison for other things. Here's how he got away with it. When the phone rang, he didn't answer it. When the mail came, he didn't read it. He didn't own anything after a certain point. After my parents split up, he never owned a house. So he had nothing. Like, what were
He was
his
a little more
attitude
below the radar. Yeah.
His attitude was, what are you going to take? What are
Yeah.
you coming for? And he was able to just, like, registered mail would come and he would take his Bic lighter and burn it and then laugh and put the smoldering thing in the sink and walk away. I think you're born. I think there might be a gene for that's turned on, that you're able to completely dodge the rules that way. Let's pause here. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to the Bob and Sheri Oddcast. Sheri is talking about this guy who for 20 years has been living in a house and he defies paying his rent, his mortgage. And he just says, I got a lawyer. We're going to postpone this. I'm never going to worry about it. I ain't paying for it. You're a sucker. Wow.
I can't do these things because I grew up in an environment where people were doing these things. And I saw what happens when you don't pay the bills.
Mm-hmm.
Things get turned off. The house gets threatened to be put up for sheriff's sale. Like, there's so much stress that goes into not following the rules. Here's another thing that my father did not believe in: vehicle registration or insurance. He thought that was an asshole's game. So he routinely drove cars that were not registered and not insured. And his attitude was, well, I'm a good driver. As long as nothing happens, how's anybody ever going to know? Now, if you get popped in a routine traffic stop and it turns out you have no insurance or registration, then you've got a world of pain that rains down on you.
Yep.
You're someone, if your car is one day late for inspection, you're stressed by it, Bob.
Yeah, it's true.
I'm stressed by it. These are people that are like, ha, copper, you ain't catching me. What a way to go through life that must be. I think they must have more fun than we do. I swear.
I think they have more fun. I think some of them live longer too. I mean, they just don't walk around grinding. There's nothing that's going to impact your health except for like smoking or something like that more than stress. And if they're not stressing on anything, that's got to be pretty good. Now, that said, I have known people who have gone to jail. I don't know if it's state prison or jail for several months for not paying their taxes. And that was not a pleasant experience. So you don't always get away with it. And I can't believe that this guy is, I don't know what to say about this guy. It's hard to believe there's not somebody that's going to come and remove him physically from that house after a certain period of time.
20 years.
That's something.
My guess is that you're not allowed to physically carry people out of the house. I don't know. I don't know, like, when his back is turned, do they padlock it and he just picks the lock and goes back in? I'm fascinated and amazed by people who do this. You know what else I'm fascinated and amazed by in a related category? Squatters. People that go in and here's an abandoned McMansion. I was just reading about this. Max, you probably saw this article too, somewhere in the Midwest, a whole neighborhood of abandoned McMansions. People just go in and move in and they stay there. And somebody comes by and says, y'all going to have to leave now. And they're like, yeah, I don't think so. And they just keep going on with their business.
It's not always a neighborhood with multiple empty houses. I mean, it could be a really nice neighborhood, because I know of one of these things. And that one house didn't sell and somebody moved in. And they've been there for years.
I can remember in Arizona when the housing crisis hit, there were people that squatters lived in houses for 2 and 3 years because they were so overwhelmed with all the foreclosures that they just couldn't get around to getting everybody out of the houses. So there were people that lived rent-free in houses with electricity and everything for years in Arizona.
How did they get away with the electricity? Because that can be turned off.
Well, they pay for the electricity. They're just not paying for rent, but they're paying for the electricity. I don't think that the power company cares who owns the house as long as they got the power and they're paying the bill.
But
Listen,
if I own the house and there's somebody in there, I would call the power company and say, those people they don't own it. Turn it off.
but listen to this. There's this thing called adverse possession, which is it's the fancy term for squatters' rights. And it's
Uh-huh.
this basic legal principle under which someone who doesn't have the legal title to a property, like a house, um, can eventually get legal ownership based on continuous occupation of the
Occupation.
property without
Right.
the permission of its legal owner.
Right.
How does that even work? Like,
I don't
that
know.
just blows my mind. That just blows my mind.
When I think of squatters, the first time it was explained to me, I think it seemed to be something that happened in the West, and it was mostly property, not so much a McMansion or a house. It was just, this property is wide open. If you stay in it, if you build on it, put a trailer on it, whatever, and stay there for 3 years, it's yours. As a kid, it was one of those things that almost like quicksand, you heard about and you go, wow, maybe someday I'll go out there. I'll just find a piece of land and it'll be mine.
I remember reading back in, God, I want to say like maybe 2012, 2013, there was this gorgeous mansion in Florida. It was worth a couple $1,000,000. I mean, it was beautiful. But the mansion got foreclosed. And so a guy moved in and he took over the mansion and he was living in it for a couple of months and he tried to claim it under that adverse possession squatters law. But they eventually got him out about a year later. He failed in his right to claim this mansion for himself. But that's when his story went public and more people began trying to do what he did. So yeah. So then there were a whole bunch of people. There was a group of people that were hopping from mansion to mansion in London. And they got kicked out. There was this one mansion in this most expensive part in London that was owned by a Russian businessman or Russian gangster or whatever. And they moved into it for a while. And eventually the Russian caught on and had them bounced. That's one I'm not squatting in. If I have even a suspicion,
seriously,
that this mansion,
I'm not messing with
yeah,
Russian mob.
If I have any suspicion that this place is owned by a Russian gangster, I'm not out of there.
Yeah, forget it.
And then there was another guy also in London that I read about. He moved into a place back in 2001. The whole building was derelict, right? The whole building was like falling down and empty, and he moved into it. He lived there for 13 years, slowly making repairs and stuff to his apartment. And eventually he got ownership rights in court. But then there was this weird thing in British law that even though he got ownership rights in court, the people that actually owned the building were able to successfully ban him from using the stairs. And so I don't know. I don't know what happened to him, like if he ended up, putting a rope on the outside of the building and going in. But there are people, not that many, there are a handful of people that have successfully gotten away with this, where they move into an abandoned property and manage to keep a hold of it for some period of time. I don't know that anybody's had 20 years like this dude in Long Island.
It just seems like a stressful way to live.
Well, of course it does to us because we're all about, following the rules. And look, I'm so much a rule follower that if the girls pick out a birthday card for their grandmother and it's one of those elaborate birthday cards, where it's like got an extra page or some cutouts and crap glued to it, I put extra stamps on the envelope before I mail it.
To make sure it gets there.
That's how boring I am.
I understand what you mean. I'll tell you the people that I'm fascinated with, and those are the people, and they have expanded their numbers during the COVID situation, who have just said, I've had it. I am not chasing the almighty dollar anymore, and I'm converting this old RV, and I'm going to live
nomads.
in it. Nomads. And there are a lot of women who are doing that. They found themselves after a divorce with not much, maybe Social Security, or maybe they had some skills where they could make some money, but they really can't afford to keep, an expensive mortgage going and all of the things with a house. And they are living in these converted RVs. Almost all of the RVs are old. And, they had like somebody who was handy fix it. And they are out there. They are out there, but good.
I have a friend who worked in radio, and he sold everything, and he lives in a converted ambulance. And I think we've talked about him before, but he gives information on this because he runs into these people, and he said there's tons of people who just gave up and decided it was cheaper to live this way, and they just travel around, and he talks to them about what it is that they're doing, and some of them are doing consulting work on the road, some people are doing seasonal work in different places, and then there's some people that are just getting by on Social Security living in these things.
Yeah.
You guys, this is my whole daydream, and has been for a long time. I actually, yesterday, Kev and I were driving somewhere. I don't know, who even knows where. I'm sure some tedious errand, but we were driving home and talking about this real estate market's insane. Maybe we should sell the house. And he said, but where do you want to live? I'm like, well, that's just it. Let's buy an RV and let's just be nomads. Let's just be done with all of this. We actually had this conversation just yesterday, because one of the challenges with home ownership is that all you do is take care of your house. That's all you do. And we had a giant copperhead snake. I mean, 3 feet long, coiled up at the end of our driveway that Kev had to deal with. And we have elderly dogs and a baby. So I don't like to kill things, including bugs, but that serpent of the devil must be dealt with, because they're venomous and, they could kill somebody with that bite. And that was just the final straw. It's not enough that I have to constantly vacuum and load and unload the dishwasher. Now I've got venomous serpents piling themselves up at the end of my driveway. Let's go be nomads. Let's go live in a tricked out Sprinter van in the desert.
You can live anywhere. You can work anywhere. And I think people are finding that out. And you're right. The thing about home ownership is this. It's the best. I mean, it's great. But it's not just paying the mortgage. It's the upkeep of there's a big pine tree that has to be taken down, and that's going to be $1,200. The sprinkler system to save the lawn, it doesn't work, and the guy wants a couple of $100 to fix that. As the old man used to say, there's always something with a house. And it's true. And that's not to say that with an RV, you're not going to have the fuel pump go out or whatever, but it's going to be less to take care of. You just have a more simplified existence. It's whether or not you can hang with that sort of small living space. You have to ask yourself, and I think people should try it out, rent one for a while and try it out and see if it works for you. There are whole communities in Arizona that are completely off the grid, totally off the grid. They ain't paying taxes, nothing.
We've done it, and I love it. I love waking up in new places all the time. The problem is to do it now with 4 cats and a couple of dogs. I don't know how in the world we would do that unless we had. It's just a daydream. It's not anything that we're going to really pull the trigger on, because it's just a daydream. But you think about that. You go, oh God, we spend so much of our lives just taking care of stuff and paying for stuff. Here you have a house, and all you do is work to pay the mortgage and then take care of it. It's crazy.
Right. If I hadn't been lucky enough to find my wife, Mary, I could see myself doing some things that my friends would think are crazy. For instance, buying a little piece of property, wherever it would be. Let's say I find a nice piece of property on a lake, all right? And I want to get a good deal on the piece of property, and I got a little lake view, and that's nice. Getting what is described as a tiny house, and then getting another tiny house. And here's why. When your kids, when they're grown, come to visit you, they're showing up with their husbands, or in some people's, cases, wives. They don't mind being in your house, and it's nice to all get together and talk about things. Oh, remember when you did this and this and that. But I think people like their own place. If you had a separate little house for them to go to, It's the best of both worlds. And if you could design it so they look like they kind of match together, you're still not spending the kind of money that you would spend on a big house. But you can have people stay on your property and they got their own thing.
Well, yeah. And if you really think about how often people come and stay with you,
It's not that much.
it's not, you maybe could even just have that tiny house for yourself. you know?
You could do that. I mean, I'm just saying if you want to have people, stay on your property, you could do it that way. I mean, obviously, the best way is, oh, you want to come and visit? Okay. There's a really nice Days Inn
Right up the road.
right down the road.
You know what I think you could have done if Mary had not come along? One of your daydreams for a long time was living on a houseboat. I think you could have done that.
I think I could have too, yeah. Mm-hmm.
I mean, actually, you and Mary still could. At some point, that's something that you guys still could do. But
No.
I think you could have been Mr. Houseboat. Really. Seriously.
I could have been Mr. Houseboat. I don't think that she'd enjoy that. She'd enjoy it every once in a while, but not as a permanent residence, I don't think. With all that hair, are you kidding me? It's going to be a small bathroom. We have a big bathroom right now, and she's got 80% of it.
It didn't occur to me that she needed square footage for her hair. I mean, I get that she's got quite a bit of it, but
did you see it the other night when we were on the cocktail hour?
Yeah.
Oh my God! It takes her 45 minutes to dry that hair.
I could do the houseboat thing. Not this. My husband's a sailor. That sailboat, that is a lot of work. Like, I just want to go putt and, have a cocktail and read a book. This part where I'm grabbing the jib and hoisting the whatevers, like I'm useless as a first mate. But a houseboat, which is
houseboat is constructed to be more like a house.
Yeah.
I mean, you can stand up more easily than you can with a sailboat. Sailboat's a totally different deal.
If you go on VRBO or Airbnb, you can stay. Some people have their houseboats like as a little rental where you can go stay on a houseboat. I think that would be so much fun.
I do too. Well, I mean, you can stay in an Airstream. You can stay in an RV that doesn't move. People are renting those.
Yeah. I think that would be amazing. So the whole, I think the tiny house could have been an alternate reality for you. I think the houseboat could have been an alternate reality for you. Of all of your daydreams, the only one that I never could see you really in was the log cabin. I could see you in the penthouse, could see you in the houseboat, could see you in the tiny house. Could never see you in the log cabin.
Why?
I don't know. Max, could you ever see him?
It's not like they're, like Abe used to live in. I mean, they're very modern. The insulation is unbelievable with those things.
Max, were you ever able to picture himself in a log cabin?
He's not. You just don't seem like a log cabin kind of guy.
But a modern log cabin.
You'd have to buy all new clothes. Like, none of your clothes would work in a log cabin.
Well, then that's through.
You don't have a log cabin aesthetic.
No, I mean, I think I would have enjoyed a place on a lake in Oregon or Maine or someplace that's very cool, and then go somewhere in the winter that's warm. The old snowbird thing, but that hasn't worked out. But I'm very happy and I'm very lucky.
You know what? You can't say it like that as though there's no possibility of it happening, because you don't know that yet, right? You're still in the middle of the story. Any kind of plot twist could happen.
I guess
any kind of plot twist.
I was very excited when and it's a daydream. I mean, but people are going to do this. I was very excited when the Ford Motor Company said that, I don't know, 2 or 3 years from now, they're going to come out with an electric F-150, which is the most popular vehicle in the United States. That truck has been the most popular vehicle in America for 20 years, believe it or not. And they're coming out with an electric one, which would mean that you could haul like a big Airstream trailer wherever you want and still not be burning up all that gas that you have to spend with a big vehicle traveling. That's always been the downside for me with the whole idea of like a part-time life on an RV. I mean, the gas is like 8 miles to the gallon. It's ridiculous. I don't want to do that for the sake of the planet or my bank account. But with a F-150, you could pull a good-sized trailer on that.
I need to revise my earlier statement about the only daydream I couldn't see you in. I can see you in the penthouse and the tiny house and the houseboat. I can't see you in the log cabin or in the RV, because the last thing that you want, Bob, is to dock your land yacht next to Dan and Karen. And Dan and Karen have been on the road now for a couple of years, and they decorate. When they park their RV, they decorate. They've got little flags and nothing but love grows here signs and their names. And they're out there. Mm-hmm. They're out there in their yard, their lawn chairs, and they want to make friends. And that is the last thing you're here for.
Yeah, we're going to have to crank up the old F-150 in the middle of the night.
And if you look online and you do a search on it, you can deliver RVs and have use of the RV while you're delivering it. If you're looking for something to do. If you're looking for sort of a fun thing and what would life be like being an RV, you can do that.
I have a family member who was dating a guy who did that as a job, and she would go on the road with him sometimes. Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
And you can, they said between $25,000 and $70,000 you can earn doing that.
No kidding. So it's an actual profession?
It's an actual profession.
Oh, isn't that great? Wow. Why wouldn't more people do that? Especially if you're like semi-retired or retired, 70 grand coming in, plus you're traveling. That's pretty nice.
Well, I would depend on the high end.
No, that's true.
Somewhere in the middle. But the thing, because RVs can't be delivered by truck. They have to be driven. They're too big.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay, Max, that may be one RV lifestyle he could do, because he's not going to be staying anywhere for very long.
Yeah.
But the first time that his RV neighbors invite him over for cocktails or a drink and want to talk his head off, he's going to run for the hills. And here's how I know that. Not guessing, not speculating, because Bob was with us on one of our RV crazy trips, and we were outside Washington, D.C., and the guy in the camper next door was real friendly and real lonely and had been cooped up with his wife for a real long time and really wanted to talk. And Bob had about 8 minutes of that before he began backing into the woods with a haunted look on his face. So I've seen it.
You're exactly right, and I would see myself doing something like that. It's terrible. For instance, when I was first divorced, I would go. I'd eat out a lot, and I would go to this one Chinese restaurant that had an enormous bar. For some reason, they had a big bar, and the food was pretty good. And I'd eat at the bar because you could watch this, something on the TV. And all I wanted to do, I've been talking with you all morning long, all week long. I just want to eat the shrimp fried rice and the kung pao chicken and have a cocktail. And this dude was always there every time. And he kind of knew the show. And he was going, "Radio man." Oh, no. "Hey, how you doing?" "I'm Fred. I see you eat here a lot, too." "Well, not that much." "No, I see you eat here a lot, too." "Okay, I eat here a lot, too." "Radio man." What you had on the radio today?" A little bit of this and a little bit of that." And at one point, after like 3 encounters with this guy, and the people who owned the place would quietly say, "I'm very sorry, and he's annoying, annoys the whole staff." I heard Radio Man like the 3rd time, and I just said, and I am 12 seats away from the guy. It's not like I'm turning to him. I just said, "I just want to eat." The bartender froze. The waitress, the hostess, all the heads went over, and I know what they're all thinking. I hate Fred, and maybe this is what it takes. This little dude over here has got to be the one. You know what? That shut him the fuck down.
But
so now put me in an Airstream, and I've pulled up, and it's taken me like 5 different tries to park it the right way because I didn't get training in the military with that sort of thing. I finally get it there, and there they are. There's my name's Fred. You had a little trouble there, didn't you? Yeah. And then for the next week, I'm the guy that can't park.
Do you see why I say that I have to add the RV to the log cabin on the short list of lifestyles I cannot picture you in?
Totally. As a matter of fact, when we finish up here, I'm going on my hands. I'm going to crawl on my hands and knees and beg my wife to never leave me. I just have to stay in this house and be happy. And
Look, we've camped a lot. We've RV'd a lot as a family and as a show. And I'm here to tell you, I have never camped anywhere in an RV park where I wasn't surrounded by wildly, hugely friendly people. At one place in the Florida Keys, I was taking Olivia and Karamia. We were parked at a campground and tent camping, and they had a swimming pool at this campground. It was amazing. And so, we've met our neighbors and so what kind of big plans y'all have for today? And I said, we don't really have any big plans. I'm just going to take the kids over to the pool. Well, hold up, neighbor. We're coming along with you.
You always say maybe that's the sort of life that I need to have to meet more people. And I bet some of them are just fantastic people. But you're either wired that way or you're not, and I'm not. And
they were the nicest people. But when they said, well, hold up there, neighbor, my husband looked at me over the top of his sunglasses, and I knew right then who wasn't coming swimming with us, who would not be joining us at the pool. Because like you, he's like, I am here to get a break from everything. Making new friends is not what I'm here for. I'm here to camp. And so we went to the pool and they came along and we were together all day. And Bob, you would have tied something around your neck and drowned yourself. They were so chatty. Yeah. So,
I'm not mechanical. And so, something's going to break.
To each their own. Some of us belong in an RV park. Some of us belong in a log cabin. And some of us belong in a penthouse with a martini looking over the city. Yeah. And there's no shame in that. But all of us should be in awe of this dude in Long Island who has balls so big that he can't even get them out of the house that he's been living in rent-free for over 20 years. Wow. That's it for today's Oddcast. We so appreciate your joining us. Y'all be good. Take care of yourselves. Follow the rules. Our website is BOBANDSHERI.com. Thank you so much for listening. New episodes of the Oddcast every Monday and Friday, and we'll see you next time on the Oddcast.
Bye.
Hey, thank you so much for listening to the Bob and Sheri podcast and the Bob and Sheri Oddcast. We would love if you would subscribe, rate and review, and share it with a friend on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, wherever you go. And thank you again for listening.